Your alarm goes off, and before your eyes are even fully open, your thumb is already reaching for the inbox. 3 messages waiting, a meeting in an hour, a task due before you've had coffee. You have a job, and that single fact will shape nearly every hour ahead of you. Now picture a different morning. The African savannah, roughly 300,000 years ago. No alarm, no inbox, no manager expecting a reply. Just the sun rising over camp, and one question in the air: what does today actually need from you? By the end of this, you'll look at your own calendar differently, because the modern job, fixed hours, one task, a paycheck for showing up on time, might be one of the strangest arrangements our species has ever agreed to. Right now, having a job feels like the natural order of things. Wake up, work, get paid, go home, repeat. It feels permanent, almost biological, like it's simply how being human works. But zoom out on Homo sapiens, roughly 300,000 years of existence, and the modern job barely registers. No fixed hours, no single task for life, no employer standing between you and your next meal. For nearly the entire span of our species, there was no such thing as clocking in. There was only the day, and whatever it demanded of you that morning: hunger to solve, a tool to fix, a child to watch, a fire to keep alive. That doesn't mean nobody worked. Food had to be found every single day without exception. There was no pantry, no fridge, nothing standing between hunger and dinner except your own effort. But the shape of that work looked nothing like ours. There were no departments, no fixed roles handed down for a lifetime. The person who gathered plants in the morning might help track an animal in the afternoon, then repair a tool by firelight that evening. Fire itself changed how the day was organized. At Wonderwerk Cave in South Africa, evidence shows early humans were already controlling fire close to 1 million years ago. And fire didn't just cook food, it stretched the usable day past sunset, carving out hours that weren't about pure survival at all. Hours for talking, for teaching, for simply sitting near each other. The rigid specialization we take for granted now, one person, one job, for life, only really took hold once agriculture began producing surplus food, roughly 12,000 years ago. Surplus grain meant not everyone had to farm, which meant some people could become potters, or soldiers, or priests instead. The job, in other words, is a child of the harvest. So what did an ordinary day actually look like before that harvest? In the 1960s, the anthropologist Richard Lee lived with and studied the Jew hoansi people of the Kalahari Desert, carefully tracking how they spent their time. His findings were startling. Adults spent an estimated 15 to 20 hours a week on the actual work of finding food. Not 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, but closer to 2 or 3 days worth, loosely spread across 7. The rest of the week went to resting, socializing, tending children, and making or repairing tools. Lee's data helped inspire the anthropologist Marshall Solins to describe hunter-gatherer life provocatively as belonging to what he called the original affluent society. Not because these communities had more stuff, but because they had more time. Even rest was deliberate. At Sibudu Cave in South Africa, archaeologists have found constructed bedding dating back roughly 77,000 years, layered from plant material to keep sleepers warm and away from insects, proof that comfort, not just survival, was already part of daily life. Some researchers have since pushed back on exactly how relaxed that life really was, once you count food processing and childcare as work too. But even the more conservative estimates don't come close to matching the always-on rhythm of a modern career, where the workday rarely stays inside its own box. But here's where it stops being simple. Now stack that against your own week. Roughly 40 hours of paid work, plus the commute, plus errands, plus however many hours your phone quietly steals before you've even noticed you picked it up. Add it together, and many people spend more waking hours in service of the job than a Kalahari forager spent finding food and making the tools to find more of it, combined. Their 15 or 20 hours went straight toward one thing: staying alive today. Your 40-plus hours mostly go toward staying alive 30 years from now, through a paycheck, a landlord, and a system neither of you designed. And yet you almost certainly eat with far more certainty than they did. No drought or bad season standing between you and your next meal. That's the trade nobody explicitly signed up for. Less daily danger, purchased with far less daily time that actually belongs to you. Except there's a catch the highlight reel leaves out. Because free time was never the same as freedom from danger. Predators, injury, drought, a single bad season that tipped straight into real hunger. Break a leg and there was no sick leave. Cut yourself deep and there were no antibiotics waiting at a pharmacy. Miss the rains and there was no supermarket to bridge the gap. The flexibility that let you skip a full day's search for food also meant there was no floor under you if you skipped too many days in a row. Every plant gathered, every animal tracked, was closing a gap between your group and starvation. There just wasn't a clock forcing you to close it for exactly 8 hours, every single day, whether you needed to or not. Ancient life didn't trade danger for time, it traded one kind of danger for a different kind of time, and neither version came free. And that's the part almost nobody talks about. The job didn't just organize your hours, it invented an idea your ancestors never had to think about. That work and rest belong in separate boxes, one for the office, one for yourself. That split would have looked bizarre to them. Work wasn't a box. It ran straight through the same hours as rest, conversation, and care, with no hard line dividing them. In 2014, the anthropologist Polly Wiessner, publishing in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, studied conversation among the Jew/hoansi and found something telling. Daytime talk mostly circled around practical matters and disputes, while conversation around the night fire turned overwhelmingly toward stories and myth. The kind of talk that taught values and held a group together. That nightly fireside hour wasn't a break from the real work of the day. It was the work. It just never came with a paycheck attached. That's the real reframe here. It's tempting to imagine your ancestors simply working a harder, more dangerous version of your own job. But the truth is stranger than that. They weren't working a harder version of your job. They didn't have your job's shape at all. No single task defining who you were day after day. No wall between the hours you owed someone else and the hours that belonged to you. Just one long, continuous day. And a community deciding together, moment to moment, what it needed from you next. Maybe that's what actually feels unfamiliar here. Not the hunger, not the danger, but the absence of that wall. You've probably felt the modern cost of it. The inbox that follows you home, rest that never quite feels earned because it was carved out of somewhere else on the calendar. Your ancestors didn't have more free time because their lives were simpler. They had it because nobody had yet drawn a line down the middle of the day and declared one side labor and the other life. So tomorrow, when your alarm goes off and your thumb reaches for the inbox before your eyes are even open, remember this. For most of human history, mornings began with no manager expecting a reply and no inbox waiting on the other side of sleep. Just a fire that needed tending, a group of people who needed you, and a day that never once asked you to separate the two.